appears that reproductive rights in this country are in big trouble. Right now, the Supreme Court has been hearing, at least over the last couple of days, oral arguments in the case Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health. Now, basically what this is that you have Mississippi, the state of Mississippi, making the case to try to overturn Roe v. Wade. Uh-oh. Now, the Mississippi law in question on Wednesday would ban most abortions after 15 weeks, which clearly, of course, violates Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade have actually, it's based on the 14th Amendment, basically saying that, hey, government, you can't go in and violate a woman's privacy in regards or in relation to her own body. So the decisions of her own body, as long as that child is a that fetus, that whatever you want to call it, is zygote, is a dependent life upon the mother, or is dependent upon the mother, it is not an individual life, and therefore is not afforded the protections of the Constitution. And so these abortion bans, which are getting sooner and sooner and sooner, earlier and earlier and earlier, I should say, in the process, in pregnancy, that does violate Roe v. Wade. And the entire point, of course, of these continuous challenges by conservatives, especially the timing of it, when you look at the timing, well, here you now have a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. Uh-oh. Yeah. So, not good, and definitely engineered for this situation. So let me give you more details, okay? Now, after nearly 2 hours of arguments, 6 justices on the court's conservative majority said some things that are pretty disastrous, very, very concerning to the future of reproductive rights in this country. Now, that said, this is not going to be decided until June, so we have some time to wait. But again, not looking good. Chief Justice John Roberts had first alluded to upholding the Mississippi law. Judge Brett Kavanaugh had questioned whether abortion decisions should even be made at the federal level, asking, well, why should the court be the arbiter? There will be, why should we do that? There will be different access in Mississippi and New York, Alabama, and California. What's the problem with that? Just states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. Now, there's an issue with states' rights. And the reason that this should be protected on a federal level, access to reproductive rights, is because what they're doing is that they're saying, oh, people, if you want to get an abortion, why don't you just go to the state that allows it? Because Republicans will ban abortion, certainly in these states where they have majorities. But that's okay. You can just go to another state. That's fine. It'll be totally fine. Except it's not. Poor people will be left out. Rich people, wealthier people, people of means will always have the ability to go and get an abortion. But this really has an impact on people who are poor, have to work multiple jobs, already have big enough families to where, they end up having to really stretch to make ends meet. And then, of course, they get met with, oh look, here you have another child. Uh-oh. What are you going to do? I guess you're just going to have to be in poverty. And not only that, their children will also be kept in poverty, especially when we live in a country that is now incredibly hostile. I say it, hostile against families. Now, what are you talking about? America, how's America hostile to families? For one, we give families almost next to no support. And even when we do, well, for example, child tax credits. The Biden child tax credit, very, very popular provision that basically allows you to get your child tax credit earlier in the form of a direct deposit. So you're already getting that tax credit, and it's going to come to you a little sooner to help you pay for the bills. Great. That's a wonderful idea. Republicans are like, no, I hate this. We should not be giving people handouts for having children. No, well, but wait a minute. You're always saying, the conservatives are always saying, you should have more children. The problem with America today is that we're not having enough families. People aren't having enough children. There's no emphasis on the nuclear family anymore, and we need to fix that. And we're not going to do anything to actually help increase the material conditions of these families to actually encourage people to have families. We don't give people health care, child care, paid leave, fair wages, so that you don't have to have two incomes to survive, unless of course you're a banker or a lobbyist. You can't buy homes. Home prices are incredibly expensive. You have private industries going in, like BlackRock, that are going around and buying up all the real estate and then trying to corner the rental market, and then, of course, raising the rents. Not only that, but you can't get an education without putting yourself into a massive amount of debt. It's very difficult to do so, especially when you have college costs that have increased, that have ballooned over 1,000% since the 1960s. So, the people that are already economically disadvantaged, and again, this is a lot of Americans. This was pre-pandemic, close to half of the population, half of working families, working adults, that couldn't afford a $400 emergency. You're going to let those economically disadvantaged people become even more disadvantaged because now you're basically forcing them to have more children. That's what this is. This is forced birth. And that, of course, all of that is just the economic argument. We haven't even talked about freedom, right? And this clearly violates bodily autonomy and freedom. Now, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, however, she thinks she's got the counter to the economic point. Here's what she said. She said, both Roe and Casey emphasized the burdens of parenting, and then says, well, why don't you just take advantage of these safe laws, which will let you leave your baby at the hospital or whatever care facility without, any sort of repercussions. Just leave your baby. It'll be fine. Someone will take care of it. Someone will adopt it, right? Right? Well, for one, that makes the baby a state problem. It makes the child essentially a ward of the state. So, for one, you're actually going to grow government. And of course, there's the other big government aspect here of forcing people to have birth. That's what you're doing. And again, what doesn't get factored in is how much somebody's body changes and what they end up going through when it comes to pregnancy. Again, there are physical and mental changes. There's postpartum depression. There's, again, health issues that can develop, gestational diabetes, et cetera, even from normal pregnancies. They're very difficult on a person's body. And so high-risk pregnancies can kill. How can you force people to do that? Oh, no, you don't understand. We're just protecting the babies, right? We're just protecting the babies. We've got to protect the babies, right? Okay, but the same people saying that, once they're born, well, you get nothing. You get zero support. Stop being a moocher. Don't be a moocher. Get a job. Get a job, lazy bum. You better take care of that baby we forced you to have. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, but that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Literally taking away the rights of people to make their own decisions about their body. Now, here's the other thing, too. We all know that if you really actually want to reduce abortions, because nobody likes the idea of an abortion, right? And I understand that you're never going to get rid of it, especially if it's outlawed. I mean, that just takes abortion and brings it into the back alleys, back to where it used to be. But if you actually want to reduce the numbers of abortion, well, first, I guess the best is to prevent pregnancy in the first place, through birth control measures that are easily accessible, that are free, comprehensive sex ed, as well as programs like, again, paid family medical leave, medical care, child care that is subsidized. And of course, they all know this, but they know this and they don't actually care, because at the end of the day, this is about punishing women for having sex. It's just punishing people for having sex. Anyone who can get pregnant, they don't want that. They don't want you to have sex. They don't want you to do anything that they disagree with morally and are trying to get the big government to come in and tell you how to do, well, what to do for your life. You know? And that's it. And so no matter how they try to justify this, this is about controlling people with uteruses. And that's it. And that's it. And by the way, in some of these arguments, here you had Justice Clarence Thomas, who tried to immediately push fetal personhood. So now that's not even being discussed here, right? That's not a part of the Mississippi bill. Nonetheless, he says, well, we should just talk about this. We should bring this in and talk about how you should make fetuses people with full rights. Now, that would end up banning certain types of contraception, which will prevent a fertilized egg from attaching to the uterus, to the womb, you know? And so that's disastrous. And ultimately, that's where this discussion ends up leading. And this is not just trying to pull a slippery slope fallacy. This is actually their stated goal is to ban abortions and contraception completely. And which is ironic because, again, you look at, for example, Catholics, right? Over 90%, like 99% of Catholic women use birth control. Again, but the hypocrisy knows no bounds. Then you had Samuel Alito, who tried to compare Roe and Plessy v. Ferguson, literally saying, oh, Roe v. Wade somehow is the same as segregation. And then on the basis of the 14th Amendment. So he said, well, the fetus has an interest in having life. No. They actually don't. And that's, again, scientifically inaccurate. A fetus does not have the wherewithal, does not have the mental capabilities to be able to understand any of that and to make any decisions. Again, a zygote has no interests. Now, eventually, if you allow that to grow, yes, it will, but it's ridiculous to say that the fetus at that point has an interest. Again, until it's viable on its own, it is not an independent life. It is a part of a person's body. That is why, look, at the end of the day, we're pro-choice. And that's just it. And we're not pro-abortion, we're pro-choice. We're saying that it's not my job to decide what is best for you when it comes to your pregnancy. That is not my choice. And it shouldn't be my choice. I'm a cisgender man. And let me tell you, men are 100% responsible for all pregnancies. Let's just say that. But nowhere in any law are men held accountable the same way or at all for women, for creating children. So why is it that women are the only ones that are held responsible and that are the ones that are being punished? Why? Because it is men who are making these laws, the ones who are not affected at all. It is why men should be way better allies in protecting the right to choose and reproductive freedom. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.